I want to talk a little bit more about what God has been showing me since last night. But before I do that, I want to talk with you about faith. When I was a kid and I would ask the adults in my life about, well, how do you know that this is true? And of course, what I was asking them is, how do you know that this counterfeit Christianity that you're involved in, how do you know that that's true? And they used to have this thing called fast and testimony meeting in the Mormon church on the first Sunday of the month. And people would get up and they would share their testimonies, and it was just empty and dead. If it was anything else, I would have felt it, but it was empty and dead. And not only that, but they would have kids get up at the podium and they would whisper in their ears what to say, which is like not really teaching your kid what a testimony is, how to bring a testimony out of your heart. And when I would ask the adults, how is it that you know that these things are true? They would say, well, we just have faith. And so the message to me was, in the absence of an actual testimony, was that they had made a decision that this was true, and then they just continued to believe. And that's not actually what faith is, and it's not a testimony. Abraham didn't just make a decision to believe in God. He had a relationship with God. He was interacting with God. And the word tells us that you can't go to God except through the Son, and that when the Father calls you, he's going to call you through the Son and to the Son. And then he's going to prove himself to you. And after he proves himself to you, he's going to require things of you. And then he's going to prove some more things and confirm some more things. And then he's going to require things of you. And he's going to step back and he's going to build your faith that way. I've proven myself to you. Now here's what I require of you. What's it going to be? Okay, Lord, yes, I will do that. Then he's going to step back and he's going to require you to have faith. You've given up something. But do you also remember what he did with you? And so this is why, within the context of faith, I know that God is real. I know what he has done with me, and I'm able to stand. So that when I've misunderstood something, or I haven't had enough information, or God is testing my faith, and sometimes that test seems relentless, that I keep going back to him, and I keep asking him, because I have a relationship with him, am I running this race in vain? Am I still doing what I think I'm doing? I know you're real. I know what you've done. I remind myself of the things that he's done so that I can then stand in faith, because this is a really hard covenant. He requires a lot of us, and there's no way that I would be able to stand today in what God is requiring of me, continues to require of me, or what he has required of me in giving up my home and building and etc. Like, there's no way that I could stand without having that testimony. No way. There's absolutely no way. So when people ask you the reason why you have the faith that you have, don't tell them that we just believe. Don't tell them a stupid, empty message like the ones I received from the adults in my life. You share your testimony. And if you don't have a testimony, you better go pray that you do, because you will not stand. So God is showing me today that there's something that I didn't have enough information, or I didn't understand properly. And there were times in the past when he was building me where I would start to kind of like freak out or panic. Like, why did you deceive me? Why did you let me believe this? I don't do that anymore, because I know from my experience, from the relationship that he's built with me, that there are also times where he's testing me to see whether a small thing like a little misunderstanding is going to throw me off, and I'm going to be like, well, you're just not real. I mean, he has proven himself over and over and over. He doesn't leave me. He requires me to stand in faith, and he requires me to pant for him and to keep studying his word, and he always reveals the next layer of what it is that he's doing. And, you know, it's been, I don't know if you guys realize this, but it's been 6 months since I lost my home, since I've been living with my kids, and it's been 5 months since I had understood that I was going to be taken and that I was going to die. That's a long time past what I thought that was going to happen, to still be sitting here going, I know it's going to happen because you keep revealing to me, and this just didn't happen in the way that, according to my own understanding. I didn't have enough information. But I know you're real. I mean, I have a relationship with you. You built this testimony in me. When people ask you the reason for your faith, defend it. Defend it not just with the word, but by his spirit. His spirit built this testimony in you, and he expects for you to share it. And you know what that does for people? They have to go discern that with God, obviously, but it lets them know, oh, this is what's required of me. I need to also have a relationship with God so that I can stand the way that I see this other person standing. And it gives them hope that that's actually even possible with God. And you know what else it does? Not only to the newer people, but also to the older people, because it will remind the older people, the people who've been here a while, of what God has done with them. And they'll hear the pattern of what God is doing with you, and they'll be like, I recognize that. I know that. And no one can know that unless God has done that. All right, so that said, I'm just going to remind you of some of the things that I've spoken with you about. I spoke with you about the first and second Passover, and also the offering of first fruits. I let you know that my kids had gone up north to visit family. I remained here, and God started talking with me about the offering of first fruits and showing me that this seasonal holy day, which does not have to align with date-specific holy days on a date-specific on a lunar calendar, dates and seasons do not correlate on a lunar calendar, but that this year God lined that up so that first Passover occurs in the month of Nisan, second Passover occurs in the second month, and then at 2 days after the second Passover is the offering of first fruits. I shared with you that in Revelation 14, that the first remnant of the end, the 144,000 witnesses, are offered as first fruits to God and the Lamb. They're redeemed from the earth in the beginning part, in the middle, actually, of the seven. I shared with you that you must enter the first Passover if you're going to enter the first resurrection. You can enter the second Passover if you're going to enter the second resurrection. But what you have to understand from Revelation 9 is that those who will enter the second Passover, they're not going to be here for the seventh trumpet, so they'll be passed over with that. But they didn't enter soon enough to be able to get into the first resurrection to receive that inheritance. They will be tortured for 5 months, and they will also die after the sixth trumpet blows. A third of mankind is going to die at that time. And the word says, of the people who don't die. So that means they're not going to stay here and go up in the first resurrection, but they're also not going to stay here and receive the mark of the beast or go into destruction when the seventh trumpet blows. They will die. Then they will rise during the second resurrection. They will have forsaken their inheritance, but they will be saved as one, only as one escaping the flames. And they will work out their covenant during that time. The implication here, by the way, is that they have not been sealed before those trumpets blew. If they're enduring the plague of the sixth trumpet, and they are a third of mankind who are dying as a result of that plague. Another thing that I've shared with you based on Revelation 14 is that Babylon the Great will have fallen by the time that the witnesses die. And I also shared with you Isaiah 18, woe to the land of whirring wings, or the land of locusts. And it says, when a trumpet sounds, you will hear it. It also talks about how God is cutting off the shoots of this spreading tree with pruning knives. He's taking away the branches, and that they're all going to be left to the mountain birds of prey. This is a time of exposure. And that at that time of exposure, the witnesses are going to be taken. Well, I don't know, guys. Is this a time of exposure? Is Pam Bondi freaking out like a rabid dog? She can't even be questioned, without losing her mind pathetically and floundering and petting her hair, something's deeply wrong. Something is deeply wrong in what she's representing. That is a woman who is freaking out. So we know that at this time is a time of exposure. He refers to these people as the land of locusts. And then we go to Amos 7. And this is the place that I want to correct, that I want to tell you that I misunderstood. What I misunderstood is when that land of locusts is going to actually be let loose. It's not before the witnesses die, it's after the witnesses die. So that does change things in terms of why the second, the people come into the second Passover, why they're motivated to come into the second Passover. And in part, the way that I was understanding this is because God had been revealing to me at the time that the significance of the first and second Passover. And in my repertoire and understanding, I was thinking, okay, but the Passover is when he sent the destroying angel, so that's when he's going to send this. I neglected to understand that Amos 7:1 says he was preparing swarms of locusts after the king's share had been harvested. And just as the late crops were coming up, when they had stripped the land clean, I cried out, "Sovereign Lord, forgive. How can Jacob survive? He's so small." So the Lord relented and he said, "This will not happen." Now, I think that it's important that you understand, first of all, that Amos is talking about the time of the end. So contextually, we are talking about the time that we're living in now, and that he is not saying that God is not going to send those locusts or continue to prepare those locusts. What God is saying is that it will not happen to the land. As angry as he is with his people, he's not sending it to the land. Now let's look and see if that same language is used in Revelation 9. Verse 3, "Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth or anything, green thing or any tree, but only those men who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads." So they're commanded not to harm the land. And here, and we know that the land is referring to God's people who have the seal. And what Amos is originally seeing is that he's stripping the land clean. So he's wiping everyone out. God could do that because that's literally what we deserve, for him to just wipe us out. But he says, okay, I'm not going to do that. But he is going to put them into a furnace. They're going to be brought out, but they're going to be brought out through fire. And they, meaning you, assuming that you have the seal and that you're bearing the fruit of having the seal, guys. Otherwise, you are going to endure those locusts. So the part of this that I was not understanding, and I kept taking this up with him, and the first thing that he did with me was to show me that this is increasing. And I did talk with you about that on a previous video that I posted, I think a couple days ago, the day before yesterday. This is increasing. If you actually, it's not being, I was going to say televised, because, I'm old and we watched TV. It's not being reported on, the increases in ICE raids. I don't know why. I have an idea why. Because of who's bought up media, and that media is scared of this administration. But it's easy enough for you to research whether ICE raids have increased in the month of February. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, then what I've understood is actually happening. And indeed, he did lead me to do that. So he is showing me this is increasing. I'm still doing something. But then look what happens. I continue to pant for him. I continue to study in the word. I continue to ask him, but what about this? And what about that? Does it, if these people are going to come in to the second Passover based on this torture that they're enduring and actually returning to you because of that, doesn't this need to happen? Doesn't it need to look this way? So I'm still sorting it through with him. So, there's value in not knowing everything up front. And that's just simply not the way that God works. He makes you work for it. He makes you sort through it and prove that you're even worthy of him revealing to you. because you're familiarizing yourself with this word and you're working to understand. So I want you to know that so that you do it. You know, it's disappointing to me that I speak these things to you, and any 1,236 of you on the channel as of today could say, well, it says that he was preparing swarms of locusts after the king's share. So doesn't that mean blah, blah, blah? Like, where are you guys? Are you reading this, or are you just being spoon-fed? Because never, when God is bringing me to a correction, like, no one's ever on here saying, well, I'm understanding it this way, or I've gone and discerned it with God, and this is what he's showing me. No one does that. And I'm not saying this because I don't want to have to be corrected or something like that. I don't care. I really don't care about that. I'm here to save my soul, not my face. But what I do care about is the way that you guys are using me. Are you using me to spoon feed you? Are you using me as an idol? Because if you're doing that, and some people know this in the last couple days, I'm going to rebuke you. I have not left being an idol and getting paid for it to come here and be an idol for free. I'm here to actually do the work of God. So again, let me reiterate this point. Amos is not saying, or God is not saying to Amos that he's not going to send those locusts. He's still preparing those locusts. But he's sending those locusts to those who do not have the seal. He's not sending the locusts to those who do have the seal, to the land, those he describes as the land. And I know it gets confusing in biblical prophecy when it's talking about Israel, but because we're used to calling some land in the Middle East Israel, but Israel are God's people. So you need to understand biblical prophecy with regard to God's people. Now, how does this change things? The way that this changes things is that people who are going to, it's already too late for you to enter the first Passover. If you haven't entered, you were warned. But for those who are going to enter the second Passover, they need to return to God based on the warning, actually not based on the plague. So I go back to the original understanding that I had, which is the reason God brings those woes is because they've killed his prophets. And the reason he's bringing those woes is because they don't have the seal. And because he's starting to destroy the wicked. Those who are entering into the second Passover are going to die. I am assuming that they have not received the seal before the fifth and sixth trumpets, and that they will go into that. And I'm assuming that based on the fact that the sixth trumpet, after the sixth trumpet blows, that they are the third of mankind that's going to be killed. Because you have to understand conceptually that the third of mankind that are going to be killed are not going to be here to receive the mark of the beast and to go into destruction, to condemn themselves, so that they would actually rise in the second resurrection. But that they would not go into the seventh trumpet, but are enduring the sixth, so why wouldn't they endure the fifth? That's how I'm understanding this. But again, I'm also understanding that that fifth trumpet plague is not happening until the witnesses die. Until after the witnesses die, because of what is said here. He was preparing swarms of locusts after the king's share had been harvested, and just as the late crops were coming up. After the king's share had been harvested is the same concept as Revelation 14. After the offering of first fruits has been offered to God and the Lamb. Discern it with me, guys. Discern it with me. And if God is revealing something else to you, share with us on the channel. And if he's confirming that what I'm saying is true, share with us on the channel. Be part of your covenant or you're not in it. Now, the other part of what is going to happen is that remember that there's this time of exposure that's happening right now. But there is something that happened within the last about 4 days that I believe is going to trigger the fall of Babylon. And the thing that happened is that a woman named Carrie Prejean Bowler, a Catholic who was previously appointed by Donald Trump to be on the Religious Liberty Commission was kicked off because she dared to question Israel, and she dared to attempt to get Zionists to define anti-Semitism. And she claimed that I, as a Catholic, do not ascribe to Zionist ideology. So now she is setting herself up as a spokesman, as a spokeswoman for Catholicism, and is saying this is not what we believe. Is that anti-Semitic to you? And everything just blew up. Social media blew up. They blew up. Smoke was coming out of their ears. They couldn't handle it. She was kicked off by the chairman, publicly, no less, because, they want to make an example. They want to let you know this is what we do to people who will not worship us. She posted something in response on social media saying, you don't have the authority to kick me off any more than I have the authority to kick you off this panel or this commission. Donald Trump is the one who appointed me, but then we haven't heard anything from Donald Trump. Far as I know, nothing. And you know what? Here's the thing. You are hearing something from Donald Trump in hearing nothing from Donald Trump. What are you hearing? You're hearing that he's not going to defend her. He's not going to assert his so-called power because he doesn't have any. He's going to stand behind his boss. So you are hearing from him that Carrie Prezan Buller is off the commission. She's out. Just like I told you she would be. Now we need to talk a little bit about the history between Jews and Catholicism, or those calling themselves Jews and Catholicism. There are tensions between the Catholic Church and Israel, and there have been, regarding disagreements over the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let's call it what it is, genocide. I've had lots of conflicts, never felt the need to murder anyone. So it's not a conflict, Google. It's a genocide. The status of Jerusalem, property rights for churches, and we're talking about churches in Israel, Catholic churches in Israel, and historical issues like the Vatican's role during the Holocaust. You know what's interesting about this is that the Catholic Church was the first, Rome was the first to persecute Jews. What's wrong with Google that it doesn't have that information? Isn't that kind of weird? They threw them in ghettos, made them wear yellow bonnets. That's where they got their Saturday Sabbath from. They don't, where's Saturday in their word? They don't have Saturday in their word. They were told by Rome, this is your Sabbath. Okay, so there's a lot of guilt between, that the harlot Catholic Church holds with Jews. The Jews that are spitting on them, by the way, like you may have seen videos of that are spitting on them in Israel. There's a reason for that hostility. There's actually good reason for that hostility. They're not victims. While the Vatican formally recognized Israel in 1993, disputes continue regarding the treatment of Palestinian Christians. Let's just think about this for a minute. How can you recognize Israel and also have a problem with them killing Palestinians? So, you're okay with them stealing Palestinian land, but just don't kill them? Because that's what you're saying, is it's okay for them to go in and steal their land and their homes, literally go in their home, lock them out, because this is what they did. Come here, we will feed you, we will clothe you, we will give you a safe place to live and recover from what you've been through. And they literally locked people out of their homes. That's how sick and depraved these people are. So I'm sorry, but that does not make any sense to me. That is a political move. It is a front. It is not, that just does not make sense to say Israel has a right to exist. No, they don't. They don't have a right to go in there and steal somebody else's land and call it their own. That's what you're saying when you say Israel has a right to exist. You want to talk about Jews having a right to exist? Human beings have a right to exist. Human beings do not have a right to go and steal people's land. And God has not told them to do that. That is not what the word says. The word says the Messiah is going to restore the land the kingdom to Israel. Is the Messiah here? Is he doing that? These people are not just doing this in Gaza, by the way. They're doing it all throughout the world. They're burning down Argentina and then buying up land. This is what their agenda is to destroy land and human beings, and then to go in and take over it. That's what their agenda is. And then to use religion as the excuse for doing it. It's exactly what the Harlot Catholic Church does. So it's pretty amazing that the Harlot Catholic Church has a judgment about it at all. It's exactly what they did. They went in, colonized, killed people, took slaves, stole the resources of the land. That is exactly what they did. How are they going to rise up now and be the moral beacon of humanity? They're not. Their message doesn't even make sense. It's a political message. It is not a message based in morality. It is a message based on what can we say to make both sides happy so that we don't bring any attention on our own atrocities. So disputes continue regarding the treatment of Palestinian Christians, the use of just war arguments. I don't know what just war is. God says don't murder. Like, how are you even going to talk about there being a holy war, just war? Like, this is stupid. And the protection of holy sites. The Vatican frequently advocates for a two-state solution and expresses concern over the humanitarian impact of conflicts in Gaza and the West Bank. The Holy See has expressed dissatisfaction with Israeli actions, including the use of just war terminology, which they argue legitimizes continued conflict. You know what would be awesome is if they actually spoke on the word that says don't murder. That would be awesome. I mean, that would be cool. You know, the actual authority, which is God. But again, they would have to answer for their own atrocities. And also, like, you have power. You have power in the world. So why aren't you using that power to mobilize a solution? Because you don't really care. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're getting something for it. The church has long-standing unresolved disputes with Israel regarding property rights, taxation of church assets, and freedom of movement for clergy and pilgrims. Again, we're talking about in Israel. Poor Catholic Church is being oppressed by Israelis. How does it feel? How does it feel to be taxed, Catholic Church? Because they're still taxing people in Europe. And let's be honest, if tithing was fulfilled through sacrifice, then what are you actually collecting from people? You're collecting a tax. That's not tithing you're collecting. The Catholic Church rejects the theological basis for Zionism, often emphasizing the rights of Palestinian Christians. The Church also advocates for an international status for Jerusalem, differing from Israel's claim to the city as its capital. So, you know, the harlot mother has lost power. And we're already told in the word that that's going to happen. She's going to lose power to her children, to the false prophet, and then to the image of the Antichrist. And the image of the Antichrist is going to take her down. Tensions are sometimes fueled by debates over Pope Pius VII's actions during the Holocaust, the beatification of figures accused of anti-Semitism, and lingering, though declining, distrust. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't understand any Jew joining with, or anyone calling themselves a Jew, like Ben Shapiro joining with a bunch of Catholics. Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all, guys, at all. Given the history of persecution of Jews by Rome. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. But, you know, they're both fake. They're both false. Fake Jew, fake Catholic, or fake Christian. So, I guess they have that in common. Alright, then I wanted to see what is being said about Carrie Prejean-Bowler's comments in the Religious Liberty Commission. And it says, based on recent reports, Carrie Prejean-Bowler, a member of the U.S. White House Religious Liberty Commission, was ousted following a tense February 2026 meeting where she pushed back against the definition of anti-Semitism, specifically regarding the responsibility for the death of Jesus. Okay, here's what I want to talk with you about. The death of Jesus. Who's responsible for the death of Jesus? And apparently Candace Owens, she was defending comments by Candace Owens and attributing the death of Jesus to Jews. Again, I made the comment in a previous video. This is a woman who seems well-spoken, seems like she has some capacity for intelligence, but she doesn't have any wisdom. So the intelligence is worthless. It's completely worthless. And when I talk about intelligence, what I'm saying is the capacity for intelligence, like the capacity to take information and be able to process it and then express it. She has that capacity, but the problem is she doesn't go to information that actually has authority. So she doesn't speak on the word. So her intelligence really is useless. It's completely useless. It is not difficult to go to the word of God and see that Jews handed Jesus over to the Romans to be killed. That Pontius Pilate of the Romans said to the Jews in the book of John, take him yourself and deal with him. Take him yourself and kill him. And they said, we don't have a right to kill anybody under the law. Do you think that the Jews are innocent because they handed Jesus over to the Romans to be killed so that their hands could be clean? So that they could say under the law, oh, well, they wanted to eat the Passover, right? Like, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. You handed a man, it doesn't even matter whether it was the Messiah or any other person, you're not allowed to kill, so you handed someone over to somebody else to kill him, and you think you're innocent? Same thing, what is Judas going to come back and he's going to be like, but I didn't kill him. I just handed him over so that I could receive those 30 pieces of silver. You guys are able to say that Judas was responsible. Why aren't you able to say that a certain number of Jews were responsible? Not all Jews. The first Christians were Jews. This isn't about being a Jew, but it is about certain Jews who handed Jesus over to be killed. They are guilty. They didn't kill him with their own hands. They are still guilty. And you better also think about that when certain protections or money are offered to you in order to hand people over. You better think about that because that's already here and it's going to increase. So no, Jews did not nail him to the cross. They didn't do any of that. They are just as guilty because they handed him over. And Jesus addressed it in John 19:11. Pilate has already said to him, you realize I have the power to decide whether you're going to live or die. And Jesus says, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. So actually, he's saying that the one who handed him over, and not just the one, but all those who handed him over, Judas and that group of Jews, they're guilty of a greater sin. So what is this argument here? Who killed Jesus? We know that Rome killed Jesus. And then these dumb people who are trying to say, oh no, Jews did it. Both of them did it. They're both guilty. Rome and that group of Jews. But the ones trying to say, Carrie Prezan Buller, who has the capacity for intelligence, but it's completely useless because she doesn't have the truth. Candace Owens, who maybe has the capacity for, I don't even know, she's such a mess, doesn't speak on the truth. If they're so smart, why do they keep going to the fathers, to the priests, to tell them what the truth is when the word is available to us? You know, when I say that you have the capacity for intelligence, all I'm saying is you're not mentally retarded. You have the ability to comprehend some things. Frankly, I'm going to say in this situation, it would be better for them to be mentally retarded than for them to have information, have the authority, have the information available to them, and reject it. It would be better for them to be mentally retarded because then they'd have an excuse, but they have no excuse. They've chosen to reject the truth. Jews are more guilty, or certain Jews are more guilty because they handed him over. Rome is the one who carried out the act of killing him. They are also guilty. How in the world do they think that God then said, well, yeah, I came here and I was, speaking the gospel and telling people what was expected. Yeah, we talked about the church in the Bible, but I mean, never mind that. I didn't establish my own church. I waited this number of years to bring it out of Rome. the people who killed me. I chose a pagan society. Never mind the people that I called to myself. Never mind the fact that in John 4, that he tells the Samaritan woman at the well that you worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. Salvation is coming through the Jews. Why would he call a people to himself, establish his law, and then bring out his church through a pagan society that killed him, whose laws facilitated the killing of the Christ because the laws of the Jews would not allow it? Why would he do that? How are people this dull? How is it even possible that they're this stupid? It doesn't make sense to common sense. Like, even if you don't have a heart, do you at least have a brain? Why would God ever why would he have established this nation of Israel, this people, give his laws to them, and his statutes and the things that he expects, invest all of this time with them to bring out his church from a pagan nation that worships other gods, and then leads you to do the same, does away with all his holy days, does away with his new moon, his Sabbaths? Why would he do that? But here's the thing. The harlot is going down. She's going to be exposed. She's going to be reminded of her guilt. And I believe that this situation with Carrie Prejean Bowler is going to trigger it. Because here's what is stated in the Bible. Anyone who will not worship the beast, who will not worship the image of the Antichrist, anyone who will not worship it is caused to be killed. And the one who causes it to be killed is the image of the Antichrist. So that means that the harlot mother who bore out this image, it's going to kill its own mother. She should have raised her children in the way they should go, right? But that's not what she did. She's full of falsehood. She has a golden cup in her hand, filled with the abominations of the earth. And this is exactly what she gets from her own children. There's plenty of animosity. There's plenty of tension. There's plenty of fuel to this fire. You just got to sit back and watch. Watch her get exposed. Watch her fall. And it's been a long time coming that she should fall. And what a gift God has given me that I get to see it before I go. Israel is not going to take this sitting down. They are going to fight. It's already brewing. And I would not be at all surprised if she gets rolled up in the whole exposure that's happening with the Epstein files. Donald Trump, we already know, Ari Ben-Menashe has come out and said Donald Trump is being blackmailed by Netanyahu. You don't think that the Harlot Catholic Church is too? What in the world was Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell doing visiting Pope John Paul II? Why were they at the Vatican? Why is Vatican Bank mentioned in the Epstein files? Why was he so obsessed with it? This was one of the most powerful people in the world because of the blackmail, because of the money, because of the things that he was doing and the people he was involved in. And you mean to tell me he didn't have anything to do with the Harlot Catholic Church, but that their sins look pretty identical? Well, I guess we'll just sit back and see, won't we? There's a reason why the Harlot Catholic Church restrains itself with regard to Israel, saying just enough to placate them. They walk a fine balance, between their members and Israel, needing to submit to Israel. But Israel requires full submission. It's not going to suffice anymore, especially because people are speaking out. And they're speaking out claiming that this is their Catholic platform and that this is what their church teaches them. So it's going to be a problem. It's already a problem. So I want you to pay attention to this. Keep your eyes open. Know what the word says. Speak on the word, because that is the only authority. And discern the things that I've said with God. With regard to what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, with regard to this fifth trumpet, with regard to the plague, these things are still rising. They are still increasing. ICE raids are still increasing. These problems across the world still increasing. ICE is in 50 other nations. You want to talk about sleeper cells, guys? So everyone's at their post. This should alarm you. Everyone is at their post when that plague goes out. And if you have people who you love, who are in your lives, if you have people who you don't love, you need to get out there and share what you know and disciple with people and show them in the Word where this is and what is going to happen so that they can come in. Go discern this with God.